my motivation, that's my why. 4 kids, been lucky enough to have them whilst I've been playing, and they've been able to experience it along the way with me, so that's pretty special. I see a lot of players that don't have kids till a lot later on, and they've said to me, I wish I'd been in the same position. I wish, you know, I'd been able to have my kids at huge games, at Scotland games. I mean, the wee man Frank, he hasn't been to a Scotland game, didn't ever get to see one, but the older 3 all talk about going to Murrayfield and experiencing that. So definitely family, for me, that's the big driver. So my name's Ryan Wilson. I've played rugby for the last 13 years professionally for Glasgow Warriors in Scotland, 50 caps internationally for Scotland, 222 for Glasgow, and that's pretty much my rugby background.
Where did it all start then? Where did you jump in rugby start?
Started down at a small club, well it's actually a pretty big club to be fair, Farnham Rugby Club down just south of London. Started there at the age of 5 years old. Managed to go through the age grades, absolutely loved it. I'll keep a bit jovial because the only reason I actually started was my old man loved going to the pub, so he'd be able to go down every Sunday and take me to rugby. He'd sit in the bar, never watch, but my mum was the one that always came out and watched, and I progressed through the age grades at Farnham Rugby Club to finally play for the first team at Farnham when I was 16 years old, which is actually younger than you're meant to be. I had to lie about my age, and I gave a fake name as well. This probably won't make it in. And I got red carded in my first game and had to go to a hearing and had to tell them that I'd lied about my name and my age. So that was my start of my Farnham rugby journey. Moved into some academy stuff, did a little bit with London Irish, a little bit with London Wasps, 2 clubs that obviously aren't there anymore with all the stuff that's happening in the Premiership, and then got picked up by Scotland through Scottish Exiles. So I went and did a trial at Leeds University, picked up by them at under-19 levels and went straight into under-19 in Scotland. My mum's from a beautiful little town called Motherwell, so we obviously had a Scottish link and went that route, played under-19s for Scotland, under-20s, played in an under-20 World Cup in Japan, which was an amazing experience. I then went back from there and needed a year of a bit of experience, so started playing in the Championship for a team called Moseley Rugby Club. It was a tough old year, a year of getting beaten up pretty much. When I was 19, 20 years old, played a year in the Championship and then was actually meant to go to Edinburgh, and thank God that didn't happen. They picked Dave Denton and Sean Lane inside me at Glasgow Warriors 13 years ago, so haven't looked back. 13 years at Glasgow, longest serving player in one stint, and like I said, 222 games. It's been a good career for Glasgow Warriors, and see what's next.
So who inspired you growing up and why was that?
Do you know what? I speak about this quite a lot, and it was a lady called Margot Wells. So Margot Wells was a sprint coach. She trained Alan Wells, her husband, to Olympic gold, 100-metre Olympic gold, and she was a speed coach. So I was pretty slow back in the day, still slow now, but I went down and she was almost like a mentor. She took me in, did a load of training. She had players like Danny Cipriani, James Haskell, Lawrence Delalio, and I was one of the youngest guys in there. And she inspired me, to be fair, the way that she made me train. She's a slightly older lady, but she was tough. I'll never forget the first time I went down. I was only 16 years old, so 16, 17, and had a bit of a hangover one day, and she said to me, listen, don't bother coming back, and she made me leave, and I turned up the next day for training with her, and she said, no, I told you, don't bother coming back. And she said, listen, if you're going to take this seriously, then you need to cut all that sort of stuff out. So no one ever believes it, but from the age of 16 to about 19, pretty much gave up drinking because of her, and focused on my career, and she's probably the woman that I've got most to owe to.
You mentioned you played 50 games for Scotland. How did it feel getting the first call?
It was incredible. had sat around. So there used to be a team called Scotland A, so it was just below the Scotland team. They don't actually have it anymore, but I played a few Scotland A games and was knocking on the door for Scotland and just wanted that opportunity. And it was a coach called Scott Johnson at the time. He gave me my first cap against Wales in 2013. I came off the bench for Johnny Beattie. Never forget it, because the first thing that happened was they kicked a massive high ball on me. I think Lee Halfpenny stuck up a huge high ball. I was sat in the backfield and I dropped it, and couldn't have been a worse start. We didn't go on to win the game, but getting the first cap for Scotland's probably one of the proudest moments of my career.
During your career, what would you say is your biggest setback and how you overcame it?
I've had a few setbacks. I had an incident in a kebab shop outside of Rugby, which actually led to me being banned. I got banned from international rugby for 6 months. I got banned from club rugby for 3 months with no pay. I had 3 kids at the time, so it was a pretty big setback. I'd have made a mistake. It was a tough time in my career. It was also a World Cup year. 2015 World Cup was just about to come up, and I'd been banned pretty much for every warm-up game before the World Cup, so it effectively ruled me out. But luckily a coach called Vern Cotter came in, and he said he still wanted me in the World Cup squad even though I wasn't able to play any of the warm-up games. So luckily enough for him, he gave me a chance, and I'll never forget how hard I worked in that pre-season for that World Cup. World Cup pre-seasons are as tough as they go. We trained at altitude at a place called Font-Romeu. So Mo Farah was running round the track at the time for his altitude training, and we were training on the middle of the pitch. It was tough, but it was me and one other guy, John Welsh, and we were the only 2 players that did every single session in a 3-month training block. So from that setback, that it was pretty hard for me, it probably made me a little bit stronger and made me want it a little bit more. And it turned out the dates were changed a little bit with the World Cup warm-up games, and I managed to play 1 game. Played pretty well and got picked for the 2015 World Cup. So from a setback like that to then make it into a positive, that's how I look at most things in my life and look back at my career. That was a pretty tough time, but good came from it, I'm sure.
Is retirement treating you well? What's next for Ryan Wilson?
Oh, who told you I was retired? Retirement, I'm not officially retired yet. I'm keeping it open, leaving the door open just in case. But yeah, it's not treating me well. I've just been on a 2-week all-inclusive holiday, and I wouldn't take my top off too soon. It's quite a bad effect. I've just been to the gym for the first time in about 8 weeks, and I was absolutely blowing. So if treating me well is relaxing and having a good time, it's treating me well, but the body's not going to thank me for it.
What are your views on Scottish rugby at the moment, and do you think the youth setup is in a good place?
Scottish rugby, I think, if you look at the international game, it's going really well because of the depth of the playing squad at the moment. You look at the team that we could put out for this World Cup already. I think we've got a good chance of going pretty far in the tournament. There's a lot that needs to be done at lower levels, but they're slowly building there. But I think if you're looking at the team that the international team's got at the moment and the way that Glasgow Warriors are performing, especially, there's 15, 16 players from Glasgow Warriors that are representing the national team at the moment. We're feeding into that, and they're benefiting from the way that Glasgow have been playing this year. And I think that Scotland are in a good place internationally right now. But yeah, I can't comment too much on what's happening at grassroots level.
What do you think of young players going to the States to progress their skills instead of staying here in the academies?
I've not been to the States a huge amount, but I've seen the facilities. I've seen how the league's growing over there in America at the moment. They've got things right over in America in other big sports. So with the 2031 World Cup for the men's, and I think it's the 2032 World Cup for the women's World Cup, it's only going to get bigger. So opportunities for rugby in America, for rugby especially, are huge. And you just look at the facilities and the way they can help athletes develop. It's a great opportunity.
Is there a piece of advice that you were told that stuck with you throughout your career?
Piece of advice that I've been told that could stick with me. No, I've never really been told, I suppose. It's probably more stuff I've learnt. Well, I suppose there's a guy called Matt Taylor who was defence coach. He was the reason that there was a punch up in the tunnel at Murrayfield that year. We won it for the first time in 10 years at the Calcutta Cup. We beat England. He would always say you got to try and get in the opposition's head. It was always part of a game that I loved. I loved doing it on the field, but he was the one that actually encouraged me to do it before the game, which I think the mental battle in rugby is huge. I think obviously there's loads of physical stuff that goes on out in the field, but if you've got the mental edge and that little bit of psych over someone else in a game, it can go a long way. So he was good at trying to get me to rile other players up before we were going out to a game and try and get in their heads. And he was a good man, Matt Taylor. But yeah, in terms of advice that was given to me, God, I can't remember. Much.
Finally, you said you spent 15 years at the Glasgow Warriors. Do you have any reason why you stayed in Glasgow for that time?
Oh, look at the weather. Look at the weather out there. Glasgow's a beautiful city. But no, I joke. I came up here and initially I said, listen, we'll go for 2 years, try and get in the door for Scotland, play a couple of games internationally, and then I'll probably head back down south. But Glasgow's become my home. I absolutely love the city. All 4 children are born here. Lived here for the last 13 years, and I genuinely call it home now. So that's probably the reason. The people, the club, Glasgow Warriors, has obviously given me a lot. I've been proud to be a one club man so far.
Lastly for me, what motivates you? What has motivated you through your career? Or now, even in life, what is the biggest motivator for you?
As you get older and have more kids, for me it's family. Family is the big one for me. That's my motivation, that's my why. 4 kids, been lucky enough to have them whilst I've been playing, and they've been able to experience it along the way with me, so that's pretty special. I see a lot of players that don't have kids till a lot later on, and they've said to me, I wish I'd been in the same position. I wish I'd been able to have my kids at huge games, at Scotland games. I mean, the wee man Frank, he hasn't been to a Scotland game, didn't ever get to see one, but the older 3 all talk about going to Murrayfield and experiencing that. So definitely family, for me, that's the big driver.